Hi everyone, so today we're going to be going through another round of my official 2020 Democratic rankings. We're doing these every week at the end of the week, so on Sundays, after the previous weeks of news and after the previous weeks of all of the things that have been going on, we recap at the end of the week to see how the field is shaping up. So, we're going, by the way, there is a new addition onto the list, and obviously that means that someone is going to have to go. There's just a quick graphical error there. You could probably see it there. Julián Castro now at number 10 on the list. So Julián Castro, so he's from Texas, definitely a positive in a potential 2020 primary, and also in the 2020 general election. Things could get interesting. He is somewhat related to Obama. He probably won't have the endorsement of Obama. Biden would probably get that endorsement. Biden would very likely get that endorsement, but he would still have a bit of that Obama name ID for people who don't really like Biden. However, he does still have low name ID, and he is quite centristy, those two being the negatives of how Julián Castro could win the Democratic nomination. And now the next person on the list, the 9th most likely person to be the Democratic nominee for President of the United States is probably someone who you can tell that it's Andrew Yang. So Andrew Yang, he can appeal to progressives and moderates, so I would consider this a plus and a minus, but mostly a plus, given that, you know, you do get that extra support, but then if some progressives see that you are connecting with centrists, or vice versa, they may steer away from you. But overall, I think it's a net positive. However, Yang still has very low name ID and is not showing up very well in polls. However, he has improved his standing from about 0 points to about 2.5 points, so that's something to note. And he's popular online, that being Andrew Yang. As for the next person on our list is Amy Klobuchar. So Amy Klobuchar, she is a centrist, so that is both a pro and a con, given so going through the pro of being a centrist in this race is that you get a lot of that lane to yourself, and aside from Biden, Klobuchar is really the only other one outright calling her I am a centrist, if you will. So, but then again, you're not getting that progressive vote, and that's definitely much more than the moderate vote in the Democratic Party. Amy Klobuchar is the 8th most likely person to be the Democratic nominee for president. The 7th most likely person to be the Democratic nominee for president I see being, who has actually fallen one spot, so just to recap, last week, Julián Castro was not on the list. Instead, it was Kirsten Gillibrand. I now see Julián Castro being more likely to win the Democratic nomination than Kirsten Gillibrand, so he is now at number 10. Andrew Yang has stayed the same. Amy Klobuchar has stayed the same. But the next person on our list is Cory Booker. He was at 6th place, but now he's down to 7th, and you'll see why in a moment, because a few other people have also moved down and some people have moved up. So Cory Booker, he's from a very solidly blue state. Now this would help in a primary, you get all that delegates, but again, New Jersey's primary is not until the end of the contest, so not necessarily such a great thing. And then in a blue state, you're not guaranteeing some swing state votes that someone like an Amy Klobuchar or Julián Castro might be able to be competitive in their home states. But his name recognition is quite high. I would call it middle to high. I think he's about 65-70% name ID. He has appealed to centrists and progressives, but I would say more to centrists. Sorry about that. And I can classify Cory Booker, though, as being close to Wall Street, so that being a con. So since you've already seen it, Beto O'Rourke. Yes, Beto O'Rourke falling out of the top 5. So let me just get my notes here. Beto O'Rourke. So here's the thing with O'Rourke. I did have him when I started doing these at number 3. I think I had it, number 3. he just keeps falling down. He went from number 3 to number 4, which was below Kamala Harris, to number 5. Sorry, I think he actually went straight from 4 to 6, just because I just don't, he had all of this momentum out of the Texas race, out of the Ted Cruz race, and then he took so long to announce, and that kind of slowed down all his momentum. And then he kind of regained some of that when he announced his presidential campaign, but now he is just totally tanked, and you'll see someone else on the list who's kind of stolen all his thunder. But as for Beto O'Rourke, he did do very well in first day fundraising, $6.1 million. I'll run through all the fundraising numbers in a separate video because now Biden has announced the stage for 2020 is pretty much set. I mean, there's still, the Steve Bullocks and a few other people, John Kerry, Tim Kaine, but, they're probably not going to run by now. I mean, even if they did run, I don't think that they would have a very big impact on the race. I think right now the stage is pretty much set for 2020, aside from someone like a Steve Bullock. But again, I shouldn't say that there's no chance of him being the Democratic nominee, but there's a very, 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 very tiny chance that he actually becomes the Democratic nominee. And then other than that, the field for 2020 is pretty much set, aside from people like John Kerry, Stacey Abrams. But again, they probably are not going to run for president by now. So anyway, back to Beto O'Rourke. He was a fundraising machine. He did very well in first day fundraising. He has relatively high name ID. He can appeal to centrists and progressives. He's young. However, he did lose to Ted Cruz. He's not really doing well in polling, and he really has lost his star power. He was very close to Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, who were at the top of the polls when I first started doing these, and I believe I put him at number 3, or maybe it was number 4, but I definitely had him at number 4 last week, and he is just absolutely tanked. I mean, I would be surprised if he held on to the 6th most likely person to be the Democratic nominee in years to come, but yeah, Beto O'Rourke has pretty much tanked at this point. So now moving into the top 5, just to summarize, 10 is Julián Castro, 9 is Andrew Yang, 8 is Amy Klobuchar, 7 Pete Buttigieg, 6 Cory Booker. And so now it's a battle between Warren, Sanders, Buttigieg, Harris, and Joe Biden. So as for the next person on our list, a progressive, issues-orientated. However, people say that she probably would lose to Donald Trump. It is Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. So again, she's by far considered the second most progressive senator in the country, quite popular in her home state, not necessarily nationwide, but she's very issues orientated. That would definitely propel her to strength in a potential primary campaign, but again, she's just not doing too well in early Democratic primary polling, and if in order for her to win, she pretty much needs to win New Hampshire. It's next to Massachusetts, and she's struggling to get even 3rd place in the state of New Hampshire, and she's only at 3rd place in her home state of Massachusetts, which is absolutely ridiculous for her. I mean, definitely not someone who's doing too well right now, but I think her issues-orientated campaign and the fact that she's a progressive and very articulate, I think that would definitely do her favors in a Democratic primary. But again, she's just not doing too well in Democratic primary polling, and also polling against Donald Trump. So right now, we have Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, and Bernie Sanders. You can probably guess that the 4th most likely person to be the Democratic nominee for president is Pete Buttigieg. So I was really tossing up between Pete Buttigieg and Elizabeth Warren and Beto O'Rourke. Those were, I didn't really know, I thought that they would be very close, but I just thought that Beto O'Rourke lost all his thunder, and Pete Buttigieg has essentially taken away all of that thunder. Last week, I believe he was at number 7 or 8 in my 2020 rankings, and he's just skyrocketed in recent polls. I mean, polls regularly now have him at 3rd place. But just going through this, so he's from the Midwest, Indiana, very Midwestern state. I mean, his feud with Mike Pence, I think, definitely would help him in a potential Democratic primary. Even though I don't like to play the identity politics game, he is young and gay. That's definitely two factors that help him in a potential Democratic primary. But two things that won't help him in a primary. One, he's inexperienced. Elizabeth Warren, even Beto O'Rourke, and Kamala, Joe Biden, and Bernie Sanders all have much more experience than Pete Buttigieg, and so that's definitely something that would play to his disadvantage in a potential primary. And also Buttigieg could definitely be one that might lose to President Trump in a potential general election, as right now he's losing to him in most of those potential general election matchups. So, three more people to go: Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and Bernie Sanders. So, Kamala Harris is the third most likely. Kamala Harris. Oh, well, I essentially just gave it away to everyone there. There you see my 2020 rankings. So let's go through these one by one. Kamala Harris, she's from California, progressive, a woman of color, favorable press. Those are four big factors that are playing into her favor. But again, she's just struggling to show up in these polls. And I just really think that that's not going to be great for her in a potential 2020 election. But I think that she will be a formidable competitor against Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. So as for Joe Biden, he has the Obama machine behind him. I mean, that's going to be definitely a positive factor. He also has the center lane mostly to himself, aside from Klobuchar. But Klobuchar's quite far down on this list, I believe. She's at number 8, so yeah, quite further down on this list. Kamala Harris, third most likely person to be the Democratic nominee for president. Joe Biden, oh sorry, we were talking about Joe Biden, but yeah, he has the center line all to himself. He's doing quite well in the recent polls. He's leading within the recent ones. I think there's 1 or 2 or 3 that had Bernie ahead, but he's leading in most of the recent polls. And he has high name ID, and fundraising has been definitely a success. However, I see there being 3 main problems for Joe Biden. Firstly, he's a gaffe machine. I mean, he just always kind of fumbles on his words without the teleprompter. He doesn't do very well. Secondly, he has a massive record, which definitely could be a positive. He could cite experience as the reason why he should be the Democratic nominee. But there's also a lot of things that Democratic voters may perceive as bad. For example, the Anita Hill hearings, definitely something where Joe Biden did not act appropriately in today's day and age. He was even against busing, which back in the day was when they would bus white kids to historically black schools and black kids to historically white schools. He was against that. Against the integration of those two races. And thirdly, he is an old white man, which I'm also going to mention for Bernie Sanders, because I do seriously think that it is a downside being someone like that in the Democratic primary, which is now more younger, more diverse, and more female. So finally, Bernie Sanders. Okay, let's run through this. He's a progressive firebrand. He has high name ID. He has a massive 2016 list he can call upon to support fundraising. He's popular. However, and the polling, definitely, he has been second place to Joe Biden in most polls and leading in a few recent ones. However, he is an old white man. He and the media and the DNC definitely not necessarily big fans of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren to an extent. So there you see the final one. At 10, Julián Castro. I'm really sorry, I did forget to update some of these graphics. 9, Andrew Yang. 8 Amy Klobuchar, 10 Julián Castro, 9 Andrew Yang, 8 Amy Klobuchar, and then we have Cory Booker, and then Beto O'Rourke, and then Warren, Buttigieg, Harris, Joe Biden, and Bernie Sanders. So thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe and have a great day, everyone. Cheers from Fun Election Predictions. Good night.